Good evening, everybody, and welcome to Bordertown Strange podcast. I'm Pam.
I'm Jess.
And I'm Robert.
Woohoo! We're researchers and we're paranormal investigators who love nothing more than to delve into our archives and share our knowledge of the strange and the mysterious. And tonight we're going to do something a little different. You may have noticed that we are not live tonight. At least I hope you noticed that we're not live tonight. We are bringing you a pre-recorded podcast, as Jess and I both have to be in different places today. But we do have a terrific show to bring you. Our friend Robert Prevo of Monstrous Arkansas has graciously agreed to hang out with us tonight and talk about what he's been up to, including his current book, his upcoming title, and all about cryptids, both from Kansas and Arkansas.
Yeah.
So, yay. Robert, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, I'm 53 years old. I live in Arkansas. I've been married for about 35 years. I've got 2 kids, 5 grandkids. Everybody drives me nuts. I do investigations and research into pretty much everything as far as cryptids, paranormal, UFOs. And I write books, and sometimes people buy them. I draw pictures, and I run Monstrous Arkansas on Facebook.
Awesome. You've got a lot going on.
Yeah, I do.
Very cool.
Do you have a picture of his book, Pam?
I do not. Do you by any chance have a copy with you, Robert?
I do not. Oddly, I don't.
I know. Okay, so Robert graciously gave us a copy for the Caney City Library. Mm-hmm. I can't keep it on the shelf. It has not hit the shelf since we've gotten it. It's got a hold list on it. And I was going to try to get it for tonight, and I couldn't. But that's okay, because we will make sure that we get a link posted to your Amazon.
Yeah, all you got to do is go to Amazon.com and you write in Monstrous Arkansas, the book. And you can either get it in paperback for $15 or you can get it in hardback for $25.
Nice. Very
Go
cool.
for the hardback.
Yes, go for the hardback. It's not a true book. To me, it's not a true book unless it's a hardback.
No kidding.
I call the paperbacks my starter books.
Yep.
If they're good in paperback, I'll eventually sell that one off and get it in hardback.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. We both
so
like
tell us So tell us a little bit about what the book's about.
So the book is Monstrous Arkansas, a field guide to mysterious creatures and whatever of the natural state. So basically it's a field guide. So if you've ever looked at a field guide for like birds or, insects or whatever, the kind of idea is, okay, here's a picture of it. In this case, it's kind of an interpretive picture of what we think it's going to look like. And then some basic information like where it's been seen, what to look for as far as tracks, the color of it, possible food sources that it uses, just different little things that might help somebody out. And then right after every entry, we put in a section to where somebody who's using it as a field guide can go in and maybe they saw something out in the woods or on the lake or whatever, and they can write down, okay, well, it looked like this, and here's all this other information. So it's something not only that you read and stick on the shelf, but maybe you put it in your backpack and you take it with you when you go looking for monsters.
That's awesome. Oh my gosh, could you imagine being somebody that was lucky enough to see a few of those so they could write in the book?
Exactly. And we don't just cover things like Bigfoot. Bigfoot's the one that I think I've got 5 different variations of the Bigfoot that are in there. Mm-hmm. But then we've got things like the water panther, we've got the Snoffus, we've got the Ozark Howler, we've got, and then we go into the paranormal stuff. You've got the ghost, everybody's got a woman in white, we go into poltergeist and things like that. Then we go briefly into aliens. So there's a couple of different versions of those at the grays that we look at.
Oh, nice.
And then we've got what we call the others. So that kind of almost falls into like the elves and goblin type thing. So yeah.
The fae and...
Yes, exactly.
Gnomes and... Okay.
Yep, you can get into that. Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, there you go.
There it is.
Yay.
Now, unfortunately, I have not had the opportunity to read this book. I couldn't get it ordered in time to get it here. I will be ordering it, though, and I will be ordering the hardback. sir.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Yeah.
Yes.
I
It's
only got to flip through
definitely
it, and it's really cool that. And
yeah.
you did do your own illustrations for the most part. Someone else did some
Yeah,
too.
I did about 50% of them, and then
Nice.
Dale Chitty did the other 50%.
Well,
So,
from what I saw, they are excellent.
yeah, I was pleased with them. We were pretty particular on what went in there. Like some of the sketches that I did personally, I know what you see in there was probably about the 5th or 6th iteration of what I drew, because I was like, nope, that looks like crap. Throw that away. Do the next one.
I understand that.
Yeah.
For sure. So
Well,
out of all the things
I'm
that you have in your book, what is your favorite? Do you have a favorite? Is it like trying to pick a favorite child?
I probably have. I think it's more of a genre of what I like out of there, which would be the other. I find the other something that sits between the world of the physical and the paranormal that kind of engulfs both of those. And I'm a lore nut anyway, so anything that has to do with lore, folklore, legends.
Nice.
So that would probably be my. I mean, yeah, of course, I'm always hunting Bigfoot and whatever, but there's something just otherworldly about the other that kind of always drags me back into it. So
We have a kindred spirit, Jess.
yes. That's our niche too, pretty
good.
much. Especially Pam.
Yeah, for sure.
That's really our thing. Now, I was gonna say I'm really interested in seeing this book. Robert and I, this is the first time we've met,
Yes.
and so he doesn't know me that well. I got introduced as notebooks to him. He's now seen a small smidgen of my notebooks. But one of the things that I've been doing for the last 10 years is mapping the ley lines in the 4 states area.
Very nice.
And mapping all the known sightings of not only Bigfoot and cryptids, but known hauntings and light anomalies and even Indian burial mounds. I've been mapping this and seeing how it falls with the ley lines. Very interesting stuff. But I have had the most trouble finding information out of Arkansas. And in fact, I pulled up my notebook, and this is all I have for cryptids in Arkansas. I'm sorely lacking. So I am so glad to have met you, and you're going to be so not glad that.
Oh no, I'm going to be glad, because here's the thing. My next book that I'm working on, which I'm working on right now, is called Animology, or Animalogy, however you want to pronounce it, and is the study of anomalies. So if you take all these little things, like the paranormal, the UFO, the cryptids, the monsters, all that, and you break it down, because we have a real problem about crossing from cryptozoology over into UFOs, and cryptozoology doesn't want to get into the paranormal. So if we break all that back down and we just call it something new, and we look at it from the point of view of we're studying anomalies, then we can be to where we'll fully encompass everything. Now, what I think you'll really like about this book is I'm doing it as an Animology 101. So this is a course book teaching somebody how to do research and how to do investigations. What it takes to be a researcher, what it takes to be an investigator, how to approach eyewitnesses, the whole 9 yards. There's a little bit of profiling in there, kind of like the BAU, like you see on Criminal Minds. Bit of that. I teach about what is evidence, what isn't evidence, how to photograph, how to cast tracks, the whole 9 yards, as basic as I can. Like my first book, it wasn't that thick. This second book, it's going to be a big book. It's going to be a textbook.
Awesome.
Ooh, that's awesome.
So I like research. To me, research is probably one of the most important parts, because facts matter. Like Reacher says on Jack Reacher, facts matter. And they do. You want to get everything as true as you possibly can, no matter what it is.
Yeah.
because then you can pinpoint, okay, this happened where, this happened when, what was the weather, what was the moon, where was the wind blowing from. I need to know everything I possibly can, because I can then take that information, all of that data, and I can look at the next event that's similar, and I can say, okay, let's compare it. Was the wind blowing out the same direction? Was it a full moon? Was there a water source nearby? That's the science part of it. You start to gather all that information, and you can almost predict where it's going to happen and what's going to happen. So anyway, I think you'll get a kick out of it.
That's exciting. I love that concept
Yeah.
because, I mean, everything that you're talking, those are things that we focus on
Good.
during an
Mhm.
investigation or during the initial research of a
Mhm.
subject. Yeah, absolutely.
Yep.
That's so cool.
Yeah.
I knew
Good.
you'd like him, Jess.
Oh, we're getting along right as rain.
Neat.
Yeah. So let's see here. Oh, I had a question. I'd said this off stage, but this is of course my first time meeting Robert. I went ahead and watched him on a couple other podcasts that I'd
Mhm.
found on YouTube. I thought it was really interesting. Nobody asked you really your origins on how you got started being interested in paranormal and cryptids. We all have like that seed starter story from when we were little. We were the nerds, not at recess, but we were in the library finding that one Bigfoot book. Or
Yeah, which it's kind of funny that you say in the library, because when I was in high school, I was president of the library club, so I love books. So what got started for me? Probably like everybody else out of my generation, it was probably In Search of with Leonard Nimoy, because
yes,
I remember watching that, and that's the first time where I saw the Patterson Gimlin film. I saw
Mhm.
stuff about the Loch Ness Monster, Jersey Devil, stuff like that. And then from there, it was, every time Weekly Reader came out at school, you were like, oh, there's a book on Bigfoot. I'm going to go get that, or whatever.
Absolutely.
Or, you're looking for it in any encyclopedia. And, I remember being in school far before I ever heard anybody even talk about the theory that Bigfoot might have been a North American gorilla, and come and putting all that together and saying to my friends, hey, I think it's just a big, it's a North American gorilla. And then years ago, I was, watching something, and some scientist somewhere said it, and I was like, yeah, no, I know. I thought that too. I moved past that now, but I thought that. But yeah,
Cool.
and I had a lot of paranormal stuff that was going on in my life ever since I can remember. I mean, I remember, the first paranormal event that I can really remember. All right, so we lived in this house where my parents' bedroom was at the very end of the hallway. Now, if you look from where their door is, my bedroom would be on the right-hand side, and the bathroom would be on the left. So in the middle of the night, as any other small child is, I was scared to death of the dark. So I was trying to very quickly get over to the bathroom, got over to the bathroom. You flip on the light as fast as you can because you want to beat the demons from getting there and killing you. Because apparently they try to do that to kids when they got to pee.
Right.
So take care of whatever I got to do. And like most kids, I was kind of a little jerk too sometimes. So I turn off the light and I open the door, and because I can hear something outside of it, but I didn't assume it was anything supernatural.
Mm-hmm.
And as soon as I open the door and turn off the light, there's my mom standing there. And so I'm acting kind of like I'm half asleep or whatever. And I kind of, just going to bump into her as I go by. You got to consider, I'm a little kid. I'm like 5, 6, I don't know, something like that. Little jerk. So I go to bump into her, and I don't hit anything but the door on the other side. So I very quickly got in my room, got into bed. So it wasn't my mom. Whatever it was looked like my mom to me. I asked about my mom about the next morning because I thought, well, maybe she just, moved out of the way or something. Yeah. She's like, no, I didn't get up.
Uh-oh.
So yeah, that was my first introduction into that. And then it just kept going from that. I saw a lot of different types of shadow people. I spent a lot of time in my early teens, late teens in the woods because we lived out by Lake Charles State Park here in Arkansas. And I had things that, would follow me or walk beside me in the woods. You could hear them in the leaves, but you could never see them.
Mm-hmm.
You're talking less than 10 feet away in the woods. You can watch the leaves move, but you can't see anything, so. But yeah,
Wow.
it's just been going on my whole life. So, I mean, it's
Crazy.
kind of, if I wasn't doing this, I'm not doing the right thing, I guess,
Yeah.
Quick question, and this is going to seem a little offbeat, but we often ask this question when we run onto someone who's had a lifelong experience, has been a
Yep.
lifelong experiencer. Have you ever experienced a near-death experience or an experience where you came very close?
Twice. Once when I was a kid, matter of fact, probably within that same time frame from whenever I tried to bump into my mom, we were in a head-on collision going to school one morning. And it was really weird, so you got to consider it's the 70s.
Mm-hmm.
So the car we had was built in the 60s, and this guy and his friend, I think they were seniors, they came over the hill and the curve and literally came up on two wheels and lost control whenever they were going way too fast.
Yeah.
I have no idea whatever happened to them. I hope they lived long and great lives. But
Right.
they came down back onto four wheels and hit us head on. Well, they were driving a Pinto.
Oh, yeah.
And it squished that Pinto down.
Yeah.
Now, they got out fine and everything. I'm sure that they were. But I remember kind of
lucky it didn't explode.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Well, if they'd got hit in the rear end, it probably would have.
It would have. Yeah.
But I remember saying no just before they hit. And all we got was, and remember, this is head on.
Mm-hmm.
All we got was a broken grill and a busted headlight. And I hit my head. And so there was kind of a flash of something, but I don't, as far as what that was, I don't know,
Yeah.
And then the second one was when I was a teenager and we were goofing around a pond, and my dumb ass thought I could, swim one part of it while I had some boots on or something, and I nearly drowned. But I got down in like the reeds or whatever, and I couldn't get back up. And it was just all of a sudden, this peaceful feeling came over me, told me, be calm, just relax. And I climbed right out of it. I was on the edge before I knew it and climbed right out of it. So.
Well, you are in light company, sir, because you have a car crash.
Yeah.
And a near drowning.
Well, how about that?
Yeah. That's pretty wild.
Yeah.
I know.
Yes, we found that in our research, people who have been lifelong experiencers.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think we've found one that hasn't had some type of a near-death experience.
Not yet. Not to say there isn't, but so far we haven't. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And we've asked quite a few people.
Yeah, and it's weird because I can think of incidents where something was going on where I probably should have gotten hurt and didn't. It's like something moved at the last second. So that, I'm not so narcissistic to believe that I'm so, important or whatever, but it's almost like something's watching over me and said, nope, not this time.
We should tell, you want to share your story, Jess?
Please do.
Oh, the drowning?
Mm-hmm.
I was about 8 years old, 7-ish, 8, somewhere around there. And my family, it was my mother and my father and my younger sister. We had gone with friends to go canoeing on a big river in Missouri, the Knoll.
Mm-hmm.
There at Knoll, Missouri. And there had been a very bad set of storms the week coming up to this. And frankly, no one should have been allowed on that river looking back at it now. There was so much debris, and the river had picked up from all the rainfall. And we happened to get a very crappy canoe, and we only had one oar.
Oh, my.
Yeah. And my father was at the front, my mother was at the back, and they had squished my sister and I in between into this one boat. And we came around a curve, and a tree had fallen over into the river. And what had happened was it had caused a suction.
Mhm.
underneath of it. And with just the one oar and with all the weight in our boat, it wasn't enough to keep us away from the suction. And it yanked our boat straight up against the tree sideways. It sucked us sideways and hit it. And when it did, it rolled. And
Yep.
my mother went out and she got sucked underneath completely. And it actually shot her out and down the river away. She popped up about a quarter mile down.
Oh my God.
Yeah. Pretty busted up, but fine. But I was a very strong swimmer. And it was my inclination the minute I started to slip out of the boat, I grabbed my little sister underneath of her armpits and had a hold
Mhm.
of her, like this, just down a little bit lower. And I just started kicking for all I could kick. And I was going down slowly. I was watching the ceiling of the water, the
Right.
sparkly up there, get further and further away. It was getting colder and colder and colder. And after a little bit, I realized I can't kick hard enough to
Mhm.
ever get back up there. And it got very peaceful and it got very calm. And I realized that my lungs weren't burning anymore. I was
Mhm.
just kind of sitting there, although I was still kicking because I could feel my little sister underneath of me. And then I started seeing, and this has always been I've never known quite what this was. I started seeing these little sparkles around me, just kind of floating in the water. And at the time, I thought they were something that like it was something with me in the water.
Right.
And looking back, I almost wonder if it maybe was me starting to black out, so I was starting to get the little
Yeah.
sparkles.
Could be.
I don't know because they moved with the water. They weren't just static around
Yeah.
me. Um and I was just sinking and sinking and it was getting colder and colder and colder and the top of the water was so far away from me. It was almost completely gone. And then all of a sudden, I was rushing through the water as fast as could be. And I popped completely out of the water, holding on to my sister, and landed on the bank. And what I found out later on was one of my father's friends had gone out onto that log to see if he couldn't help. And he said he looked down and he could see my braid floating on the top of the water. And he reached down and grabbed a hold of my braid and pulled my sister and I out.
Oh man.
And I know it wasn't possible because we were at the bottom.
Wow.
My
Isn't
hair
that
was not long
crazy?
enough. Yeah.
Yeah,
But yeah, and it
I like to believe that the lights you saw were something else. I'm
Mhm.
my inclination isn't towards you were about to black out. I feel like it was probably
yeah,
something else.
I don't know. But it's just like you said, you get to that point when you're drowning where everything just kind of gets calm
Mm-hmm.
and you just kind of start letting go of everything. You're just like, I'm just kind of relaxed and
Yeah.
this is what it is. I wasn't accepting that I was going to drown. I was too young, I think, to know
You're right.
What it
what was
meant. Yeah.
happening.
Yeah.
I was just, in this weird kind of world with these
Yeah.
little sparkles. I do know that I was told by my father because he was the only one that made it out of the canoe. I don't even remember him being there, but apparently he had a hold of me and was shaking me and pounding me on my chest because I wasn't breathing,
Mm.
even though I was I was looking at him, and
Yeah.
apparently he was shaking me and telling me to breathe. And it took another like 30 seconds before I took a breath of air.
Mm-hmm.
And he said I was just fine,
You
just not
were
breathing.
you were at
That's
that point
crazy.
where right then you just didn't need air. You were
Mhm.
Yeah.
just yeah. It's almost like being in a meditative state or entranced or something.
Yeah.
It's a weird survival thing because I think I kind
It
of went
is.
through that too, where I was like, if I attempt to breathe in down here, I'm gonna suck in water and
Right.
it's gonna
Yeah.
suck, because that's a very painful way to go.
Yeah.
But I was just like, if I just calm down, because whatever it was telling me, just be calm,
Mhm.
And it was kind of like that, just calm down.
Mhm.
And I just relaxed. And it was like the hold that the reeds had on me was over with. I wasn't by me trying to fight against them, I was actually making it worse.
Mhm.
Kind of like the whole
Yeah.
quicksand thing,
Yeah.
So, yeah. So I totally get what you're talking about.
That's
Yeah.
wild.
Mhm. You should tell them, Pam.
Yeah.
At this
Oh,
point.
I have a crazy one too. So I was 25 when this happened. It was 1994. And my oldest son, he had just turned 5 years old 3 days before this happened. So it was October 23rd.
Mhm.
And he was in the back seat of my car, and he was in his car seat, and he had a really bad habit of unhooking himself and crawling out.
Mhm.
And I was driving down the highway, and I look in the back seat, watching him unclick himself. And so he starts to climb up and climb in the back window. And I'm like, oh, great, And I look ahead, and there's a policeman. And I'm like, oh my God, I'm going to get a ticket. So I turn my blinker on to turn left. I'm looking at the cop. I'm looking at my kid, and I turned right in front of a car.
Oh
And
God.
so, yeah. And I tried to, get the steering wheel around fast enough to get it straightened out. And I got it almost, but it hit my side head on.
Oh no.
And I did have passenger in the front seat, and it spun the car around and landed us in a ditch. And my passenger, her name was Kim, she had hit her face on the windshield. And I didn't know until later, but she was hiding her face from me because she was bleeding and she didn't want me to
Oh.
see it. But later, the windshield, the glass where it broke, it had a perfect imprint of her face in it. It was really crazy. But on my side, that's the side that got crunched in, and the engine came through the floorboard, and it took my foot off.
Oh my
And
God.
yeah, so my left foot was, if you look down, I could see my leg, and then my foot was off to the side. And she was like, "Are you okay?" And I was like, "No, I broke my leg." And she was like, "Okay, okay." And of course, the policeman's there, and he's like, "I can't believe this just happened in front of me."
Mhm.
But I was stuck. They were able to get out. Both her and Tim were able to get out on their side of the car. But the way I was caught, I had actually bent the steering wheel around the column, and my head was stuck up between the windshield and the dashboard. And so where I was, I guess I was laying this way because I could look down and I could see my foot and my leg, but I couldn't do anything. I was stuck. And so they had to get the jaws of life to get me out. So I'm stuck in here. Well, then I start freaking out, because I'm like, oh
Right.
my God. And so I was having a meltdown basically. And they finally get me out, and they get me in the ambulance. And as soon as I get in the ambulance, my leg just started gushing like a geyser. And they got it calmed down and everything, and got me to the hospital. And Tim was in the ambulance with me. He had just turned 5, and he was fine. Luckily, he had nothing wrong with him at all, which is a shock because he wasn't in a restraint at all.
Right.
But we found out that I had actually broke my nose, and I had broke, I think, 4 ribs.
Mhm.
And, just completely, I had a compound fracture of my left tib and fib.
Oh my.
And yeah, it was bad. So they took me into surgery. They were like, okay, we've lost a pulse in your foot. So we need to get you into surgery and get things reattached as quickly as we can. So they did. They put my foot back on basically. And Timmy was freaking out. He was like, would not leave my room, wouldn't let my mom take him. He was like, no, my mama's going to die. Well, we were all like, okay, he's traumatized because, he saw this. So, we understand. But he wouldn't let it go. It was like weeks later, and he was still like, wouldn't leave my side. And he's like, no, my mama's going to die. My mama's going to die. And it got to the point where we're like, okay, we need to get him some help,
No, right.
So we got him into a counselor, and, to talk about, your mom is okay, everything's fine, and stuff. And finally, one day, I was asleep because we had to stay with my mom. Obviously, I couldn't do anything. And he was helping her. I think they were making cookies or something really normal. And he finally said, do you know why I think mama's going to die? And she was like, didn't want to stop and say, no, why? Tell me, She was like, no, just no, I don't, tell me why you think that. And he was like, because I saw her angel. And she was like, you did? Oh, tell me what she looked like. And he said, when he got out of the car, he said, I saw the top of her head and the top of her wings through the top of the car, and she had her arms wrapped around my mama, and there was a light coming down from heaven. And he said she was going to take mama to heaven, so mama was going to die. And she was like, oh no, honey, she was there to protect your mama, And he was like, oh, okay. And he drew a picture of her, and he'll tell you, he's 34 years old. He'll tell you to this day that he saw my angel. And it still just freaks me out every time,
Right.
I hear about it, because the craziest thing about it all was the fact that we found out later I had severed the femoral artery in my leg. I should have bled out in the car.
That's what I was thinking.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I should have bled out, and I did not. I didn't start bleeding until they already had me in the ambulance where it could be controlled.
Yeah.
So
that's what the angel was doing.
Yes.
Yeah.
Isn't that crazy?
That is fantastic.
I get goosebumps every time I talk about it.
I got goosebumps listening to it.
It's pretty wild.
That was an amazing.
So, yeah, that's my near death. So we've all had
but
some
like I
ones.
said, we've never found someone who has vast experiences that have not encountered a NDE at some point in their lives.
Right.
It's just something. And that's a whole different show. We might have you back for a parallel universe, multidimensional show later on.
I'm up for it.
So,
we love stuff like that.
Good.
Yeah,
that's right up our alley.
We do. All right, so we should probably get back to cryptids.
We got a little outreach there.
Hey, whatever you want.
Okay, so we were talking about Arkansas cryptids.
Okay.
We know a lot about Kansas ones. We don't know a ton about the Arkansas ones. You've already given us our favorite one. Do you have one, the weirdest cryptid story you have come across?
Oh my,
maybe one that does not match up to anything else you've heard of, because we have a handful of those.
Yeah,
nothing off the top of my head right now. The weirdest.
Oh, I'm making him think.
Yeah, and there's only 2 brain cells, and they're fighting for dominance right now. I can't think of anything that would fall into that absolutely weird thing. Because when you say weird, I'm thinking of like, what is that one? I can't think of it. They called it the Terror. It was a 3-legged thing that showed up at one night on somebody's doorstep and was never seen again. Or you've got the what are those things? Those goofy looking walkers that
that are just 2 long legs.
The Fresno night crawlers.
Yes.
Yeah, to me they look like puppets.
They look like pants that are walking.
Yeah. To me they look like puppets. It looks like somebody is operating those with a marionette thing. But those are kind of one-off things that pop up. Those are really strange. Yeah. Where they're only seen one time, and in history they never pop up again. So as far as Arkansas, not off the top of my head, not anything that I can think of. I mean, there's a lot of really strange ones, but I mean, as far as just one right off the top of my head, no.
I have a question. Right. What do you think the Ozark Howler is?
Okay. So if we go by what Lauren Coleman and I think it was Chad Armont, I'm not sure. But anyway, they kind of did research and dug into it. And for the biggest part, it was an internet hoax. Okay.
Yeah.
So, and it was done by a kid who was in college in Arkansas, I believe, in Fayetteville. So there's that aspect of it. Then you get into, I'm trying to think of the name of the guy who wrote the book. But anyway, there's a book, The Ozark Howler. Ralph, can't think of his last name. I don't want to really criticize another writer, but it was more of he had an axe to grind about being in the Bible Belt to put it very politely.
Gotcha.
Okay. So the history that he mentions about that, about this church in Ozark that has this stained glass window that had the Ozark Howler on it and all this other stuff, that almost falls into the folklore of like the Jersey Devil.
Right.
It's
Yeah.
kind of like Arkansas, Missouri's version of the Jersey Devil. So that's kind of questionable. However, the part that you have to look at is the people who actually have the eyewitness sightings of these things.
Mm-hmm.
But are they calling it the Ozark Howler simply because somebody told them that's what it is? It had to be the Ozark Howler. When it could have been, yeah. I mean, we've got the same thing that goes on with skinwalkers right now. That's all the craze.
Yes.
Anything that happens is a bloody skinwalker.
Yeah.
And that drives me nuts. Just the idea that somehow these medicine men from the Navajo Nation over 100 years ago have become immortal now and are all over the U.S. They're not even hanging around, in Nevada or wherever they were originally. They're just going everywhere and scaring the shit out of people. That bugs me. There's other things that are quite explainable or that could be, like I talk about, what is it? Nucephalea, something like that. It's a Choctaw spirit type thing. It fits into a lot of those. I just did a post on our group about it, and I don't know why I can't remember the name now. But so it fits into the whole skinwalker, Wendigo, the rake. It fits into all of that stuff. So we've got that, and then so back to the Ozark Howlers type stuff. It could be what we're calling Dogman. It could be a Bigfoot thing. A lot of it is people just hear a sound out in the woods and they're like, oh, that's an Ozark Howler. Yeah. Well, a lot of people don't know what sounds are going on in the woods. About the creepiest thing you will ever hear in the woods is a fox. A fox will scare the crap out of you in the middle of the night. And you won't know what it is. You'll be like, what the hell was that? So I think there's a lot of little things that are going on that are maintaining the lore of the Ozark Howler. But it'd be interesting to get to the root of it. Yes. And and once and for all say, okay, well, it's all hoax, or there's parts that are true, but it's not this thing over here. Somebody's made up this other thing. I could make up something, a creepypasta creature. And, I honestly think if I made one up and I made a book about it, that 100 people would start seeing it all over the place. Because, that's like, we saw the same thing happen with Slender Man. Yes. They came up with that. That was a creepypasta. Slender Man. You had, what was it? Something the Killer. I can't think of it. And kids and adults both were seeing this thing in the woods, and outside.
It's like it turned into an egregore, breathe life into it or something.
What kind of makes me wonder about that whole situation, though, is not so much the state of the mind of the people who were seeing it, but is it that this becomes so culturally ingrained in our heads that these things that are out there can assume whatever shape is going to scare us to death.
More like a trickster kind of thing.
Yes. Yeah. Very much the trickster. So, and that's
creating like a tulpa type of situation where we've actually like hive-minded it into being. Almost.
Yes. And there is that as well. That's another offshoot of the same aspect. Are we the ones who are causing this to actually become something? Is this why it leaves tracks and then suddenly disappears? And we don't understand why. We've created our own monsters.
Yeah.
That's possible.
Very possible. I would agree with that.
The truth is, we don't understand reality. We don't understand anything about reality. We think we understand it, but even scientists will look at, or physicists will look at matter You know, there's a comedian that's on TikTok right now that talks about it. You know, the matter that I'm made out of is the same thing that the desk is made out of.
Yeah.
That doesn't make any sense, you know, and there's no reason why my hand can't pass right through this desk right now, but it
Other than
doesn't.
our mind. Yeah.
And we don't know why. We
Mhm.
don't understand the actual physical rules once we get down to an atomic level. You know, we think we're getting better because we've got quantum physics and quantum mechanics, but it's funny that we only came up with that within the past 75 to 100 years.
Yeah, exactly. Yep.
So, and we're still not any further. You know, maybe we don't know anything that we think we know, and we just kind of, you know, this seems to fit along the way, you know, and that's probably where we are. That's the way science kind of does. So, but as far as the Ozark Howler, I don't know. We'll see.
Yeah, exactly.
I think Pam was actually testing you a little bit with that question.
That's okay.
We have many friends in the Ozark area that are paranormal and folklorist, and we love when we get to do panels and stuff with them, because we wait for someone to inevitably, because it will always come up, to listen to their story about the Ozark Howler and the sound of the eyes rolling on the panel.
Especially one of them.
Yes, there's one in particular who will actually shoot daggers at you if you mention the howler,
which is hilarious. But I would tend to agree that that name has been put on things that are, I'm sure, real, that are out there.
Yeah.
They just don't know what they are. And you know,
yeah,
when you look at the different camps, like, you know, there's the UFO camp, there's the Bigfoot camp, the cryptid camp, you know, and the ghost camp. They might be experiencing the same thing, but they all three have different names for what it is.
Oh, yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
Which that's why I love the concept of your new book so much.
Yeah. Like, what was his name? John Keel, who wrote a lot about, everybody knows him from Mothman and stuff like that, but he did a lot of other stuff too. Looking into a lot of books. And, you know, he was big into UFOs and then Bigfoot and then a lot of the one-off stuff that you guys were talking about. And he even noted that one of the most common paranormal sounds, there are two. The most common paranormal sound to hear is the sound of a baby crying.
Yeah.
I've experienced that myself. But it's across all three of those. It happens with the UFO stuff. It happens with the ghost stuff. It happens with the monster stuff. The other one is the sound of being out in the forest in the middle of nowhere and hearing a car door slam shut.
Yes, yes.
You know, so there's weird things that cross all of the. If you want a perfect example, orbs. Orbs cross all of these genres. We see them with Bigfoot. We see them with hauntings. We see them with UFOs. I mean, they are a UFO. They're an unidentified flying object. We don't know what the hell they are.
Yeah.
So, and everybody makes assumptions. So if you're in the paranormal group, it's got to be a spirit. It's got to be a demon. It's got to be this. If you're in the UFOs, it's got to be a drone, or it's got to be, you know, something. If you're in Bigfoot, and you're in the kind of the paranormal side of it, well, Bigfoot turns into this thing, or this thing turns into him, or it's the, you know, it's the gate that, you know, the thing. And I kind of roll my eyes about all of them because we don't know.
No, we don't.
We're making wild assumptions about something that we have no clue about.
Yeah. Especially when you got the camp that's like, no, it's all dust. It's or nothing. It's all dust. You don't know that, you know. Is it not dust? You don't know that either. You know, you don't.
Yeah.
Well, I do draw a line between an actual visible orb.
Yes, that emits light. Yes, one that emits light.
Yes, if it emits light, to me it seems like it's something bioluminescent. Other than that, I don't know, because I'm then making assumptions that are just as bad as the ones I'm griping about. So.
Right. Yeah.
What the only thing I hate more than the orb people, everything is a ghost, are the ones that have to find the face in every orb.
Yeah.
Oh, yes. Yes.
It drives Me nutty.
Well, see,
Most
the thing is, we have the exact same thing in the Bigfoot community,
Mhm.
where you have a picture. I could take 20 pictures of a forest and post them on some groups, and they will come back and have circled, with red circles
Yeah.
all over the place. Well, there's the face right here. Can't you see
But
the
it's
foot?
just
Oh, it's
paranoia.
smiling at you. It's giving
Yeah.
you the finger over here.
Yeah.
It's something going on. And all it is shadows, because people
Mhm.
see what they want to see.
Yeah.
And the human mind is it's programmed to find faces, to
Well,
look
yeah,
for
we
faces
we
and
did
things.
that as
So
kids. We would lay
yeah,
out the fields and look at the clouds, and
yeah.
and mom and dad, and oh, look, there's a bunny rabbit, and there's this. So our brains, not only that, our brains are naturally attuned to doing that. We are prey to some things. So we were always looking for that predator that's sitting in the forest, that's
Yeah.
sitting in the grass. So yeah, we look for that stuff, but we don't really have that going on anymore, and we have way too much free time. So we're not fighting for survival anymore. So we're looking for, I can even say that about myself. Here I am looking for monsters whenever I don't have to look for monsters. But what else am I going to do?
Right?
Yeah.
It's too great of a hobby, man.
It is. It is. It is. I wouldn't know what to do if I wasn't doing that, quite honestly. I think I'd be kind of lost without it.
Yeah, for sure.
It's too much fun.
Yeah.
It is.
I always feel sorry for people who don't believe in this stuff, or at least interested
Yeah.
in it somehow, because living without that kind of magic in your life has got to be
Yeah.
so boring.
Oh, yeah.
To not
Yeah.
have that wonder
Yeah.
to your
And
life.
I don't know about y'all, but
Yeah.
I have found that every time I try to kind of, I don't know, act like an adult or whatever, it finds me. It will find me.
Yes,
It will
it
come and find
does.
me.
100%.
We
Yeah.
are both with you on that.
Yeah.
We are not capable of walking away from it either, because the minute you turn your back on it, it taps you on the shoulder,
Right.
and it's like,
Mhm.
"Hey, remember me over
Yeah.
here?
Yeah. You know
Let
what
me
I
trip
think
you."
think's interesting too is, we have there's one particular area out in the Sandhills that we have been doing research on for quite a while. And so there's been a couple of times that we've got in so deep with it, we've had to back off
Mhm.
because it's just gotten overwhelming. And what's interesting is when we back off, things calm down. But the second then we go back to it, it's like, okay, here I am,
Yeah.
just been waiting on you, kind of thing. And that is the craziest.
Yep.
But I mean, we can't, I couldn't walk away if I had to now.
Yeah.
Yep. I understand completely. I wouldn't know how to. And I think in a way, these things, these entities, whatever you want to call them,
Hmm.
I think they are looking for some kind of a relationship with us. They want to be, they're a part of our universe. They're a part of our reality. They're a part of our world. And they're looking for those of us who are sensitive enough to understand that they are there.
Yeah.
It's at one time, I think they were probably referred to as gods, and they were, you still see it nowadays. A lot of times we'll do, gifting for Bigfoot or something like
Yeah.
that, or offering. So you got to be really careful. You want to be careful and, make sure that you put out, a line of no further. This is where we're at right here. And, I don't think you're a god. I don't think you're this, but we're going to talk.
Right. Yeah.
And that's another thing that I do. I don't know that anybody else does this. I'm sure they probably do. I go out in the woods by myself. I'll find somewhere and I will talk to whatever spirits are out there, and just let them know, hey, I'm not out here to hurt you. I'm not out here to cause any problems. I'd prefer you didn't hurt me or cause me any problems. But I'd like to know that you're here. I'd like to know that I'm not a Looney Tune and I'm sitting out in the woods by myself talking to a rock or something.
Right.
But because I think they do value a relationship with us, and and I think a lot of times when we become afraid, it's because we don't understand. It's kind of like someone who has a fear of snakes or spiders. You're making an assumption that may not necessarily be clear or may be true. You know, you've watched, you've been told, you know, especially snakes. Snakes pop up in the Bible. So you have the serpent, so everybody thinks snakes are evil and everything. Black cats are evil. The witches had the black cats. We can't trust crows because, you know, they're familiars too and everything. But we don't understand any of those things.
Yeah.
But once you start to try and understand them and you understand their behavior and you can read when you're annoying them, when you're not, you're able to build a relationship with them. And that's what we need to do in this instance. Now, I don't live under any delusion that I'm going to have a pet ghost or a pet, you know,
Right.
fae or something like that. But being able to have an actual relationship with them that is healthy is possible.
Should we tell him about our fae situation?
Sure.
Do.
So we have this a lot. We still do investigations on homes and businesses and things. Almost everything that we do is anonymous.
Mhm.
And Jess and I are part of Bordertown Paranormal, Southeast Kansas Bordertown Paranormal. There's 4 of us, and then we have one member that's auxiliary. And it's been a couple years ago now. There was a house in another town that they asked us to come investigate because they were having problems.
Mhm.
And when we went, we noticed some crazy things right off the bat. Like in their basement, they had an open well, not closed off at all. And we were like, okay, not only are you running risk of snakes and creepy crawlies getting in your house, you really need to cover this up because you don't
Mhm.
know what's coming up through that.
Yeah.
But there were other things going on, little weird impy things. And Jess and I, out of all, we have one team member. We call him our rock. He doesn't feel anything, but he's great to ground on, kind of thing, you know. And Jess is pretty sensitive. I can be kind of sensitive too. And we were running across some really strange things that we had to say, okay, we're not sure what's going on. You know,
Mhm.
we need to go do some more research and then get back to you on. And that's what we did. And we were pretty sure when we left the house that first time, we had an inkling of what was happening because it wasn't really. I mean, there was a spirit there,
Right.
but there was other things there too.
Right.
And the weirdest thing was in the attic, there were these really strange piles of dirt. And we were like, if this is what I think it is, this is crazy, you know? So we thought that we were probably running into something that was what we ended up determining. We think whatever was up there was trapping some fae that were coming through. And, you know,
We know it was trapping fae. We had
Yeah.
video proof of it. We had
Well,
just started using
really good.
an SLR camera,
Ah.
kind of
Yeah.
testing it out, and it had a little bathroom on that second floor, and there was one little window at the exterior of the house, and I had put the camera facing that little window just to see if I could get any movement in there.
Mhm.
And boy, did we get movement. We got about 20 little stick figures that were only
Yeah.
about that high, clustered around that window. And if you took one step
Almost like
inside of that
ladybugs.
bathroom, yeah, if you took one step inside that bathroom, they would shh, and they were
Yeah.
gone. And you'd take a step back out and wait about 30 seconds, and they would start to
Come back.
pop back up into that window again. But they would just hoard around it like ladybugs, like she said.
Uh,
Yeah.
I have a
Yeah.
question.
hmm
hmm
Was there by chance a big, very old tree next to that house?
Oh, there's tons. It's in a very old town.
Yeah.
Okay.
There was a few around it.
The Japanese
Yeah.
refer to those as kodama. Those are basically forest spirits. Usually, when a tree, because I get a lot into the Japanese folklore, the Native American folklore, and like the Scandinavian. So in Japanese folklore, when a tree reaches a certain age, these are kind of like the spirits of the trees. And they start to, you know, they hang around the tree. They kind of
Mhm.
protect the forest and everything. If the tree dies, these will disappear too.
Mhm.
They're it's a weird thing, you know. They're kind of what they call a yokai. Um, and they will venture away from the tree as more and more of them produce. They kind of seek things out. So
That's
they're
kind of what seemed to be happening. Wherever they were coming from, they were clustering in this house.
right.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's
Well,
really cool.
interestingly enough, so we started looking up the problem with the big section of dirt that was in the attic.
Right.
Mhm.
And we found some Fae history that kind of lent towards it being something that was actually keeping some stuff trapped within the house.
Mm-hmm.
I think more than just Fae. I think there was some other stuff trapped in that house. Another interesting side note, we kept finding anomalies all throughout the house where our meters would go, they would top out, but only within a 3-inch section in the middle of a room in the air.
Midair. Yeah, midair.
Interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Very
They
interesting.
never moved. They would never move. We went back 3 times and they were always in the same spot.
Mm-hmm.
But the minute you moved it right out of that little section, it would go completely dead. It couldn't pick it up until it was right in that little spot.
Interesting.
And they're all over that second story of this house. They just float there. It's one of the weirdest,
It was
strangest
crazy.
things. It was. And that house had something else. And this is just a little side note. It has nothing to do with the Fae whatsoever, but it's one of my proudest moments. It was so exciting for me. There was what they thought was a kid or a little girl ghost in one of the bedrooms.
Mm-hmm.
And it was bugging everybody in the bedrooms up there. She would kind of
Right.
go from bedroom to bedroom. I'm pretty decent with the rods. I work pretty good yes and no's with that.
Mm-hmm.
And over the course of an entire evening, I had finally figured out that it was this little girl. She was about 9 years old. Of course, I don't know her name or anything. She seemed lonely. She,
Mm-hmm.
I don't have anybody to play with. And so we went back and started doing some heavy, heavy, heavy research. And I finally found the family who had originally built the home and lived in it for the longest. And we came to find out that the father was a bookkeeper and kept long, long hours at work.
Mm-hmm.
The mother was a socialite who couldn't be bothered taking care of her kids. She was always out and about on the town. Their son was going to college in the town that they were in, and he was living in the dorms. And their one daughter, who was about 8 or 9, 10 at this
Right.
time, was literally there by herself, maybe with some help in the house, maybe a maid or
Right.
something like that. But she was always on her own. And I wondered, I was like, so I looked her up and I found out at that time she was still alive. She was just very, very elderly.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, well, she's still alive, so she hasn't passed. And I was like, I wonder if this little girl spent that whole time there just as lonely as can be, if maybe she left a little bit of herself behind,
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
right?
Yep.
So I was like, well, there's only one way to find out. I'm going to test it. So I gathered up all of the information on the family I could get, names and birthdays and favorite things and what they did. And then I took information on this woman after she graduated and left the house and what she did with her life, clear up to where she was living in a nearby town at that time.
Mm-hmm.
And I went back and I shut everything down in the room and I picked my rods back up and got her attention again. She was right there. And I didn't even use my rods after that. I just talked to her. And I was like, is your name such and such? And it crossed. And I was like, okay, we're just going to talk now because I think there's some things that you need to hear. I know that you're lonely and I know that mom and dad are out of the house a lot. And I know that big brother is out too. And that's when the meters started going crazy around us. And I knew I was on the right track.
Mm-hmm.
And I basically just walked her through it. And I was like, if you want to sit down and listen, I'm going to tell you a little bit about what is in your future. Do you want to hear what your future is? And I didn't tell her everything. I just told her, I was like, you get to leave the house and you're going to go out of state for college and you're going to go and get a degree
Mm-hmm.
and you're going to marry a very handsome man, but I'm not going to tell you his name. You'll have to find that out later. And I basically did this, like gave her little tidbits.
Right.
And I said, but you can't go and do any of this if you stay here. It's time to grow up and go.
Uh-huh.
And she was gone so fast, the meters went dead. And the poor lady who owned the house, who had just been annoyed by this thing for years, was like, I don't feel her here anymore. This feels so light in my bedroom now. And I was like, and I've talked to her since, and she said I've never had a problem since.
Amazing.
So
amazing.
I think I moved on something that was just literally a tidbit of somebody else left behind.
See, and you may be onto something with that. A lot of times where we think that, you know, the ghost is there because it's got unfinished business, or it's angry about this or angry about that. It could be that in certain traumatic instances, we leave a part of ourselves behind.
Yes.
It's not the actual us. The best analogy I've ever heard of this is you take a candle and you light it. Okay. So there's a flame on the end of that candle, right? Take another candle and light the flame over there, and now you have two flames. You didn't lose one from the original, but it's the same flame. That's what happens with spirits sometimes, is that it does that. So, yeah. And I often wonder, too, aside from that, you know, just my own ramblings, you know, because my brain is like a ping pong match going on all the time.
Join the club.
Yeah. I wonder too sometimes when you bring in things like the Fae or the other, what if when you walk into, you know, some old abandoned place that is now inhabited by the Fae or the other, they know what's going to scare us. You know, just as a defense mechanism, just to scare the living crud out of you so you'll get out of there and leave them alone. Something pops around the corner, scares you, makes a noise, does whatever. You know, it's just a way of getting you to go away, you know. And the scariest thing for a human being is to run into another human being that they don't know. So if you're walking down a hallway, it's dark, there's a little bit of light at the end, and I want you to go away, I'm just going to stand menacingly in that shadow.
Freak you out.
You're going to get scared and you're going to run away. You know, so if I've got to do something just to get you to
have my
away,
peace and quiet back.
Exactly. You know.
Okay, so while we're talking about this, I'm excited about this, and I've been holding it in. When you were talking about the tree, it was reminding me of something. So I pulled up the pictures from that initial investigation, because on the wall, on the staircase up into the attic, there was a saying written, and we thought it was really creepy and weird at the time. So I just pulled it up. Can't really tell what it says. I'll read it to you. It says, "Replace the chopped down tree. Take care of this, please. You'll be sorry if you don't." And we knew at the time it meant something. I completely had forgotten about that.
Yeah, this house was weird. So it had that Fae aspect going on. It had that uncapped cistern in the bottom, and it had all sorts of crazy stuff going on there. And the little girl, and there was actually an older gentleman who was very nasty.
We still
trooping
don't know
up and down the
exactly
hallway.
what he was, because we're pretty sure he was what was trapping Fae. And basically,
well, you had an interesting crossing of situations going on. And like with the Fae, whenever you get into Scottish, Irish, and whatever folklore, there's a lot to do with trees. Trees come back over and over again. Mounds of dirt come back over and over again with the Fae. You know, that's where the Banshee actually comes from, is the protective spirit that protects the Fae mounds. So, and then you've got the well. Oh my goodness, you've got a portal. Right there, because you have a liminal space. Anytime you have a liminal area, you have a possibility of a portal. Like people don't realize, you know, like you'll see all these videos of, you know, somebody sitting in their living room and then something sticks its head around a doorway, you know, and then just disappears, and they go look and it's not there. Well, if it's not a hoax video and something's really going on, a doorway, all doorways are liminal spaces. Because there's a transition that happens between there. Mirrors are liminal spaces. you know, there's a lot that happens in folklore and wives' tales and all that stuff that we really need to take and pay attention to, because our ancestors weren't idiots.
No, they were not.
Yeah,
They
they
knew
weren't.
what they were talking about.
What's
Yeah.
really cool about all that what you're talking about liminal spaces is this particular residence at one time had been somewhere where children went to stay until they could go to another home.
Right.
So it was a very
Yeah.
liminal. You're only here
Yes.
for a short period
Yes.
of time.
It was a
before you
wacky
stay.
space. There was so much more to it than that. There,
Mhm.
the owners were giving visions of past fires that had happened on the property.
Yes.
They thought their garage was on fire, and then the next minute it was fine. We found out later on that there had been a carriage house right there that had burnt.
Yeah.
Right.
But the most amazing one to me is that so right after they had moved into this house, they had done some work and they had fixed up a different bathroom that was on the second floor at the time. It was literally just a water closet. It just had like a little sink in it and a little toilet.
Right.
And they had completely gutted this thing and redone it, put all brand new plumbing in it, brand new toilet and sink. And then they left for like a month on a vacation. And when they came back, that whole second floor was just in disarray because literally the toilet had exploded. They said there wasn't a chunk of toilet bigger than that.
Yeah.
Oh,
And
wow.
it had blown out. It had blown the door open. It had cracked the sink, and the entire toilet was in pieces in the hallway.
Jeez.
And it wasn't winter. It wasn't like the water pipes,
Right.
froze and something burst or something like that. They said literally it was as if somebody had yanked that toilet off of its setting and just exploded it into
Yeah.
a billion little pieces.
Yeah.
And they never did anything with it. They plugged the hole up and they just shut the door and they use it as a storage closet.
Mhm.
Wow. Wow. Yeah. Yeah, that would have taken a massive amount of back gas to
Yes.
push up
Yeah.
through the sewer for that to happen. That's almost never heard of.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Not in the little pieces that this, I
No,
mean,
no.
you could see on the wall where it had hit,
Yeah.
like
Mhm.
pock
Chunks
marks
in the
in
wall.
the
Yeah.
wall,
Yeah.
in the hallway across from it.
Yeah,
where it had
you would
literally
have
just-
required an actual explosion for something
Yes.
to cause that to happen.
Somebody would have
Yeah.
heard it.
Yes. Yes.
The neighbors would have heard it, if nothing else.
Yes.
We keep saying, and the crazier part, but this is something else that happened that was also really crazy and really upsetting, actually. So where I live in an apartment, and it's got a patio door and a front door, and that's it.
Mhm.
And I had a 16-year-old cat, little black cat named Sweetie. Never been outside in her life. She had always lived indoors. And she was tiny. She was like 5 pounds, little bitty thing, and old, and starting to turn gray. And I woke up one morning and could not find her. And this was right within 2 weeks of that. Well, it wasn't even 2 weeks, was it? It was within a few days of that last time we were at that house. And I couldn't find her. And I was like, oh God, she's gone somewhere and died, So I'm like, I'm going to find her and it's going to be terrible. And so I'm looking everywhere. I'm not finding her. And I happened to, whatever reason, the light caught just correctly in my hallway. And there was one bare footprint in the middle of my hall. And it was way smaller than my foot and way bigger than my granddaughter's foot.
Oh boy.
And that's only 2 people that could have made that. And we were like, so I'm calling Jess. I'm like, what the hell? I took a picture of it and you can see it plain as day in the picture. It really showed up well because where the footprint is, it almost looks dirty, like it was a dirty footprint.
Right.
Just one bare footprint. And my cat's gone completely. I still have never found her.
Oh my.
No way for her to get out of my house. And that was 2 years ago? I think February 16th was 2 years. Never showed up again.
Had your cat ever been out of the house and disappeared prior to that at all?
No. She was 16 years old. She was declawed. She didn't go outside. She just, she was a baby. She sat on my shoulder all the time.
Right.
She was
That's
always
very
on my
interesting.
shoulder. Yeah.
Yeah.
Gutted me. I still to this day don't know what happened to her. But
Well, I think we poked the lion too much that time, and
It pissed me
kind of
off.
followed
Yeah.
her home and whisked off with the cat, as
Yeah.
he
Ladies,
meant.
I have a question since this is a pre-recorded show. Is there any way we could take a small break?
Oh,
Yeah,
absolutely.
absolutely.
Okay.
I'm not sure how to
Break away.
Yeah,
I will be right back.
yeah. Let's do a break, and
Okay.
then I'll edit later
Okay.
Okay.
because I'm like I can't
Or we
stop the
can-
recording, or it'll stop the whole thing.
Well, we can keep going.
Yeah.
So we can continue talking about that a little bit if you want.
Yeah, absolutely.
We
I'm
still
still
need to get a hold of that woman
Yeah, we
and
do.
check in on everything. And see
That's
what
somewhere
else.
we need to get Christy with us too, because she's really interested in that case.
Yeah, absolutely.
But
Ooh.
I had completely forgotten about that thing written on the wall until
I did too. Like I
I
couldn't even
don't
remember
know.
exactly what it said until
Let me
you
see if I can get it close
until you
enough
read
where
it.
you can read it. I don't know if you can or not.
Back it off just a hair. There
We go.
Oh, it is.
It
That's
is, isn't it?
insane.
Okay, now that we know
Wow.
we can see it, when he comes back, we'll show it to him. That's freaky.
So the next time I'm in that town, I'll have to drive by there and see if there's a tree close by, or if there was a tree. See if there's a stump, maybe.
It seems
or...
like there was one off to the east of it, about where the carriage house was, if I remember correctly. And I know there was one in the front yard.
Yeah. Well, maybe there was a tree right there. Maybe there'll be like a little stump or something. And because then that note would make sense.
Yes. For chopping the tree down.
For chopping. Interesting.
It is interesting.
I don't even think I have my notes on that in here. I don't think I do.
I have them somewhere. There, I would have to dig through my drive to find them, but I know I do somewhere. Yeah, this will give me practice on editing. Let's see. I need to make note of the time.
Yeah.
1:12. Okay. Yeah.
Well, we'll just keep on talking in case you can't figure it out. So we're not boring the people at home if they're listening to this right now. Let's see here. So for the next show, while we're waiting on Robert to get back, we're going to have on Brian Terrell from Red Dirt Cryptids. If you all have hung out with us before on the What If Tomorrow podcast or on the Fringe podcast, we've had him on over there. He's a hoot and a half, and he loves all things Bigfoot and Dogman. So that'll be exciting.
Okay, we figured out, Robert, check this out. I was like, let me see if I can get this close enough to where you can read it. So, and we did, I was able to. So let me see if I can get it back up there.
All right.
Yeah, for the most part, yes.
Is it gonna? There it goes. Replace the top down tree, or you will be sorry.
That is really cool.
Isn't that freaky?
That is. That is.
Yeah. And I believe that was written back when it was the children's home.
Yeah.
That is really interesting.
They have no idea who put it there. It had been there when they purchased the home. I think they had purchased it in like 2010.
Mm-hmm.
And it was there prior. And it was a home for children, I want to say in the 60s, 70s, and 80s, maybe somewhere in that time frame. I can't remember the details off the top of my head, but yeah, somewhere in that time frame.
Was it kind of like an orphanage, or?
It was more of a troubled
okay.
boys.
Yeah.
And
it was a boys' home. It was a troubled boys' home, basically.
Okay.
Yeah. It was like an in-between spot for, I think, for the kids who weren't bad enough to end up in juvie.
Yeah.
But maybe didn't have parental care.
Right.
Or maybe the parents had kind of gave up on them. So they just got sent to this boys' home. And a lot of them I know graduated out of there. Like they went to attended school and then left out when they turned 17, 18.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's interesting because, these different things pop up where kids are all the time.
Yeah.
Even with Bigfoot, we've had researchers and investigators who have noted it seems like outside of schools, Across the road, especially if the school is out in the country where there's a playground or something right across the road, there seems to be these things that'll pop up, and they just sit there and they watch kids. Now that sounds creepy. You're kind of like, well, why are they watching kids? But if you think about it, and you're out in the forest, and you've done what you need to do as far as hunting and all this other stuff, there's not a lot to do. And watching humans can be kind of enjoyable, as we've
Especially the little bitty ones.
Well, yeah, we've kind of proven with things like Survivor and Real Housewives of wherever, that people like to sit and watch people. So they like to sit and watch kids. Kids are funny. Kids do cool stuff. But when you get in with a paranormal is attracted to kids. There's something about it. There's something about the other that wants that link, and if you think about it, like us, definitely with me, I know I can speak for myself. Ever since I was a kid, this thing or these things have been attracted to, be around me. I'm still sensitive to this day. I can tell when a spirit's near. I can feel it, matter of fact, the house that I live in now, it's a funny story. There was a couple of stories, but I'll just give you this one. So I'm doing the dishes, and where our kitchen is, you got to consider this is an old house. This was built in 1949. And back then they used to build, so you built this one main room where you had maybe a kitchen and a bedroom and living room. And then as things go on, they add another room and they add another room and they add another room. So it's piecemeal work is what it is.
Yeah.
So here's the kitchen. There's a doorway that goes off into a big bathroom and, laundry room and everything off to my left-hand side. Behind me is the doorway that goes into the living room. And my wife is a bit of a practical joker in as much as she likes that I'm into the paranormal, but likes to scare the living shit out of me every time she gets a chance.
That's awesome.
So, she's a hoot. You'd love her. Okay. So I'm here doing the dishes. And I can feel the hair on the back of my neck stand up. Ooh. And the first thing I'm thinking is not that a spirit's about to mess with me. This crazy lady I'm married to is about to scare the shit out of me. So I kind of turn and I look over my shoulder, and she's not there, but she's sitting on the couch. I'm like, were you about to come in here and scare me? And she goes, no, I'm watching TV. And I said, were you even thinking about? And she's like, no, I'm watching TV. And I said, stay there. Don't come in here. And she's like, why? And I said, because I need to check on something. So this doorway is open over here that's going into the bathroom, and it's pitch black in there. There's nothing in there. And so I go back to doing the dishes. And here comes that back over my neck again. And I turned around, I looked down that doorway, and I'm like, so help me. If you don't cut it out, I'm going to run you out of this house right now. I said, look, I'm tired of your crap. Go do whatever. I don't need you doing this because you're going to make me mad in a minute, and then it's going to all be over with. That was it. It was gone. It was over with.
Nice.
Now, to put an end to that ever happening again, we decided to fix some of the floor plan and do away with that door. So once we did away with that door, it ended a lot of that. There was a lot of movement that was, my grandson was in the living room one time playing a video game, laying on the floor. It was dark in the kitchen, and I was sitting in the bedroom. Now, this is before I did away with that doorway. He comes in there and he goes, Papa, were you in the kitchen? And I said, nope. And he said, well, somebody just walked through there. And I was like, oh shit. So I got up and I went and I walked the whole area and everything. And, me cussing it out the whole time. I'm like, you want to mess with me? That's one thing. You don't mess with the kids.
Yeah.
And, I'm big about laying out ground rules and everything. If you want to mess with somebody, you can mess with me, but you're not going to mess with somebody who's innocent and can't defend themselves. And that stopped that shut that down, So, but we did away with that doorway, and that did away with a lot of the issues there.
That's interesting. Get rid of that liminal area.
Yep. Now I've got one more. I've got to tell this one.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah,
Go
I'm
for
happy
it.
to talk about cryptids and everything, but yeah, I got to tell you this one. So anyway, living room, we're sitting there watching TV. My daughter's over, or she may have still lived there. I can't remember the exact time frame. So because we've lived in this house for quite a while, so we're sitting there watching TV, and there's the doorway in front of us that goes into our bedroom, and again, it was pitch black in there. So I see down by the door frame, no more than maybe about a foot up, this little faint light. And I was like, hmm. And so I keep waiting. And then another one, it's almost like there's one light here and the other one kind of pulls up to it. So now you've got two eyes. And
Ooh.
I'm looking at it and I go, hey, and I nudge my daughter. I'm like, hey, Alex, that's my daughter. And she goes, what? And I said, look at that over at the door. And I won't repeat what she said because it's worse than something I've said already. And, and I kind of tilt my head looking at it, and it tilts its head too, looking at me.
Oh,
And she was like, what is that? And I'm like, just calm down. I said, there's nothing to worry about. It's not like it
yeah.
came out here or, growled or it made any noise, and like I said, it was about a foot high. And I always joke around that it was my raccoon ghost, because there's a whole deal about raccoons around my house. So anyway, it kind of tilted its head, and then when it realized that she was scared, it did the exact opposite. That one light faded away, and then there went the other
Kind of
one.
reversed itself.
Yeah, it just kind of
Interesting.
cut out of there, and I was like, "Well, that was cool,"
Yeah.
Meantime, she's like, "I'm getting out of here," and I'm like, "It didn't do anything," you know. So, but we have all kinds of weird stuff happens.
Interesting. That's pretty cool. Fun. We can't hear you, Jess.
Sorry, I had it on mute because there was some stuff going on in my house. No, I was saying we enjoy all kinds of stories.
Well, good.
And
Absolutely.
ghost stories, cryptid stories, Bigfoot stories, UFO stories, bring it
Yeah.
on. We love them all.
We
So
started out just ghost hunters, and
Right.
that's all we did for a while. And we started as a group in 2012, and
2012.
we probably went, how long? How many years do you think? Probably about 6 years, 5, 6 years, just ghost hunting.
Mm-hmm.
Uh-huh.
And then
And
we realized
then
there's more to this.
Yeah. Well, when I was
the outside started creeping in, and
Yes.
yeah,
we started making connections, and now it's actually kind of funny. We don't deal a lot with ghost stuff
mm-hmm.
anymore. I mean, we do investigations for private homes and for businesses if they're having issues, and we'll do all of that. But our main focus is very rarely on just ghosts
Right,
anymore. And
right.
we always laugh. We wish we could go back and tell ourselves from back then what we are doing now, because they would laugh at us. We were like, "What? You're investigating Bigfoot? Ah ha ha! You're investigating cryptids? What?" Yeah.
UFOs.
Yep,
Are you
and it's
crazy?
all linked. It's all linked. It's all well,
Yeah.
whenever I got started,
That's our
whenever I
tagline.
was
It's all
a kid,
connected.
yeah, when I was a kid, like I said, watched In Search of, and of course, you had
Mhm.
Bigfoot was out in California, it was in Oregon, it was in Washington. It had to be where this, the Pacific Northwest and the rainforests and stuff like that. It couldn't possibly be over here. The biggest thing we had was maybe Black Panthers would show up once in a while or something. And it started to creep in. And once we really started getting into, the talk of wild man, wood boogers,
Mhm.
you know, just the Beast of Bray Road started popping up and different stuff like that. You had the Honey Island Swamp Monster, you had Boggy Creek, you had all of these things that started to pop up and add up and start to make sense. Then we realized everything is everywhere, and then
Mhm.
there's those that are still, well, you got to go way deep in the forest to find Bigfoot. No, you don't. They're hanging around right outside right now, probably.
Yeah.
So
See, yeah, I was the crazy kid though when I was little. See, I grew up in a family of genealogists. My grandfather was a historian.
oh, that's cool.
Um,
Yeah.
and I grew up around all of this. I knew of all the local legends. I knew about the Noxie monster, and the Catman and, you know, the Panther. You know, I knew about all this from the
Right.
time I was old enough to toddle around, and I would talk about these things at school, and these kids would look at me like I had lost my marbles, and they were like, that stuff isn't around here. You're a liar. And I was just
Yeah.
like, no, I grew up hearing about like I've been
The
taken to
adults in
these
my life are
places.
telling these stories.
Right.
Yeah. So it's like when we got together back in 2012, it was kind of interesting how it happened. So Pam and our friend Mark actually kind of got together through Mark's wife.
Mhm.
She was like, hey, you two are both weird. You should get together. Right. And they decided to like see if anybody else in our little tiny town. Now, Caney it has less than 2,000 people in it. And it's in the middle of the Bible Belt, old farming community, you know, more churches than there are houses, basically.
You just described the town I live in.
Exactly. And they were like, I wonder if there's anybody else in this area that might be just as interested as we are. And they put a call out on Facebook. I think they set up a meeting at the local historical society because Pam
Yep.
was the president there at the time. So
Yep.
she kind of had use of the building. And I found it. I was floating around on Facebook one day and it was a call out, you know, anybody interested in the paranormal? We're going to just have a fun open meeting. And I almost didn't go. I almost didn't go because I was still scarred from being little, you know.
Yeah.
You
Right.
just didn't talk about that stuff with other people.
Mhm.
I still believed in all of it. I dealt with it almost on a daily basis in my own life. And I was just like, screw it, I'm going to go. And then all of this got set into motion.
Yep.
Yep.
We were actually shocked. Around 30 people showed up at that first
Yeah,
meeting.
we were blown away because we were like, you know, we're either going to get run out of town or we're going to have like 5 people show up, one or the
Right.
other. You know, we
Right.
weren't looking for much. And when 30 people showed up, Mark and I were just like, holy cow, we are onto something here. This is awesome.
That is great.
Yeah.
That is fantastic. Yeah.
It was.
It
And it did
dwindled
dwindle.
quickly though.
You did.
Yeah. The next one, it was like half of that. And then the one after that, I think there was like 10 of us there.
Yeah.
And we decided that day, we all gathered up our stuff and we drove out to a local cemetery that we knew had some stuff going on in it,
Mhm.
just to do a little quick like night investigation. And that's where we found our core group because
Yeah.
the rest of them scattered that
Yeah.
night. They couldn't take it.
Some
Because
stuff
within the
did
first
happen.
within the first 10 minutes of us being there, we saw a shadow creature shoot
Yeah.
through the middle of
Not a
us.
person. It was something really small. In fact, I didn't see it. It was behind me, but it was in
I
front of
saw it. It
Jess
was
and
about the
somebody
size
else.
of a rabbit. It was
Mhm.
about
Yeah.
the size of a rabbit. And it was just a completely black shadow. And it just went in between our entire group as we were walking along one of the little paths. It just went right between us
Mhm.
and shot off between some headstones. And that's where everybody noped out. And we kind of
Yeah.
got left with our core group.
I always wondered where my little raccoon guy came from.
He must have said,
Maybe he
"Hey,
knows
these
our little bunny guy. So.
Yeah.
crazy ladies are going to be getting a hold of you." Or he came our way, one or the other.
Yeah,
Who
really,
knows?
one or the other.
Something.
That's awesome.
But yeah,
Cool.
if we went back and told ourselves what we were doing right now, we would call ourselves insane.
Oh
Yeah,
yeah, yeah.
for sure.
And
And
it's
not to
been
say,
it's
go
been
ahead.
a fun progression
It has.
as new things have come into our group. And you
Right.
know, I was the first one to be like, I really think what we're dealing with right now is a Bigfoot.
Mhm.
And they all were like, okay, Jess, as we were traveling along in a van and just shaking their heads. And I'm like, they think I'm effing insane.
I didn't because I had an experience years ago
Mhm.
that I
And
got laughed
Pam was
at
always trying to
for.
push the Fae into the
Yeah.
mix because she was the Fae person. And we were like,
Mhm.
Okay, whatever you say, Pam. And Mark is he's very into the physics and things of things. He
Right.
has
Yeah.
multidimensional parallel, you know, theory and all of that. And we were just like, look at this dude right here. Talking about this stuff, you know. And finally it all just kind of, because everything started fitting in, everything
Right.
started working. If
Right.
we look at it this way from this direction, this absolutely makes sense now. And if we look
Yeah.
at
Yeah.
this, you know, and that's how it's come about.
Yeah.
So
That's
You know what's
really cool.
what's really
Yeah.
cool is we're very, very well, at least Jess and I are very research oriented. We always have been. And something that Jess started really early on any investigations that we did was she would start with a notebook and she
Mhm.
would start marking the time. Okay, this is the time we left. This is the time we started. This is the time this occurred. This is the time somebody, sneezed or whatever, documented everything.
Yep.
And that's when we really started catching things that we would not have caught otherwise.
Mhm.
Um,
A lot of time slips, a lot of
yes,
missing
which is
time, a lot of added
crazy.
time. Yeah.
In fact, we had gone back in, I can't remember what it was, but I was looking through those. Just you were here at my house when I found it too. We were looking back
Mhm.
through notes that we had taken in that area that we do a lot of research in,
Mhm.
probably 6 or 7 years earlier. And I ran across something and I was like, oh my God, look at this. We wrote this down then with a question mark. We didn't even know what it meant. And now it's perfect clarity. We know
Right.
exactly what this means. But at that time, we weren't even into that. We were into ghosts.
Yep.
And
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, it's like that's when you get that feeling that okay, maybe we are onto something, we're on the right path here. We don't know what path we're on, but
Right. Right. Right.
yeah,
Yeah. And that's
made
kind
us
of
feel
the
good
thing
about
that
it.
I'm hitting on in the next book. There's two things that are usually missing. Well, one that's too much there and one that's not there at all in investigations and investigative teams. One there's too much of it, and that's bias.
Yes.
We all walk in with our own biases. I have my bias, you have yours, like you like the Fae,
Right.
and then there's the crypto side of it and the alien side of it. But if we can realize what it is and we can set it aside and we just take a look at the evidence for what it is and
Mhm.
don't try to make it fit into what we want
Mhm.
and
Yeah.
just let the story play itself out. That's what is a
Exactly.
big thing. And then the second thing is protocol. Most people don't have any protocols.
Mhm.
So if you go in to do an investigation and let's say, Pam, let's say you do the spirit box this time and you
Mhm.
do it for 10 minutes, you get bored and nothing happens. Okay. Well, we go to the next place and Jess does the spirit box and she runs it for 30 minutes. Well, there was no protocol. There was no protocol in there. The protocol needs to be whether anything happens or not, one person runs the spirit box for a certain amount of time. That's it. That's how you set a protocol. And then the next one, and the next one, and the next one. Now, if you want to add in experiments, then you can add in experiments. Well, Jess does it every time. Jess is doing it this time, but we're also going to let Pam do it for a little bit.
Mhm.
And we're going to write down that as an experimental one and see if anything changes. So once we start to establish protocols, that matters. That matters because we
Mhm.
start to the repetition, just like Jess is doing with the notebooks. She's writing down everything, and she's in a lot of ways without establishing protocols. She's getting the information, the data that you need to have that you would have if you establish protocols.
Yes.
So
Mhm.
yeah.
Yep. Absolutely. That's what I always tell everybody. We get asked a lot, because we do all of these we do these panels and we do these presents once a month and we have club meetings and stuff. And the question we most often get is, how do I get started ghost hunting? What do I need?
Mm-hmm.
And I always disappoint them entirely because they think I'm going to give them this huge string of all this fancy equipment and, like, here's the links to it on Amazon or,
Right.
it's got to have like a whirly gig on it and it's got to light up and I'm like, if you want to start seriously ghost hunting, all you need is your phone
Mm-hmm.
because it has a camera on it, it has a recorder on it, you can take a video with it, it
Yep.
has the time on it, it has a compass on it.
Yep.
Use your phone, a pen, and a notebook.
Yep.
And they're like, "What?" And I was like, "Seriously, it's all you need.
Mm-hmm.
Walk into your space, write down everything. What time is it? What time of year is it? What's the date? What's the weather like? What time of the day is it? What do you see in front of you? What kind of a space are you in? What's the temperature?" And then just start writing down everything. Use your phone to your advantage. You've got a flashlight on it, so if you're in a dark space, you've got that. I was
Yep.
like, take pictures of everything, take video of your space that you're in, and
Mhm.
just run with it. And I was like, even if you don't think anything has happened, go back and look at your notes, and you
Yep.
may very well find out that a lot of things happened. You
Mhm.
just weren't, picking it up at the time.
Yeah. And the big
But
thing is
I
to
just,
repeat it. Repeat it. Do it
Yes.
several
Yes.
times. That's where you can
Yeah.
see what's missing, what's added.
Yep.
Yeah, exactly. And I
Yeah.
tell them that. I was like, we have some fancier equipment that we pull out occasionally. We do love our meters. And I was like, and we don't really use our meters to find ghosts. We use our meters to find where there's bleed at.
EMF
Do we
leaks.
have
Yeah.
do we have an electrical problem here that's making somebody sick?
Right.
Yep.
That's what we
Right.
use our meters for. I was like, our investigative is feet on the ground, taking notes, looking at the area. What are we feeling here? What are we seeing? What is happening from day to day?
Mhm.
And I always feel bad telling people this, but like I told them, I was like, a very good percentage of the time when we go into these private homes or businesses, we find out it's not haunted at all, that
Yeah.
they've got bad pipes or they've got a raccoon in the attic.
Yep.
Right.
Bats.
Mark loves it when there's a problem like that because he is right in there fixing it. He is like netting over that spot in the attic where the squirrel's getting in at. He made one lady so sad. We had an older lady and she had this door that would swing open on its own. And she thought it was like her son or something like that had
Aw.
passed.
Yeah.
But it scared her. It
Yeah.
scared her very badly. And he went and took a look at the door and realized that it was just on a lean.
Yeah.
It wasn't set right.
Yep.
So he literally just went and he found a pair of pliers and stuff and pulled everything out and kind of reset her door and got it all back in together again. And it worked perfectly fine. And she never had a problem again. And she was so sad about it.
Happy but
That's-
sad.
I was like,
Yeah.
Mark,
Happy
how
with
could you get
that.
rid of a ghost?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's
But
happened a
we
few
tell people
times.
that all the time.
Turns
Yeah,
out she didn't have a ghost. She had a bad carpenter.
Right.
Yeah.
she just had an old home. So
Yeah.
we tell people that, like a good percentage of the time, it's not anything what you're thinking. You've worked yourself up into thinking it's haunted because you heard that bump or,
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
We had one, we tell this one a lot. We went into this home where the children were just terrified to sleep. There was always something watching them, and they couldn't, they had to sleep with their mom all the time. They couldn't be in this room. And when we went in, we pulled out millimeters and stuff like that, and we realized that the refrigerator, it was an older model, it was pouring EMF off of it.
Oh my goodness.
And so we are going on through the house. We made note of it. We go on through the house and into the kids' room, and we realized that their bunk bed was right up against the opposite side of the wall of that refrigerator. So we put the millimeter on the wall, and what was it? It was like, it was
topped
some
out.
god awful amount.
It was insane.
I want to say it was like 62, 70, it was some stupid amount.
Yeah.
It's supposed to be zero. And so we were like, okay, so here's what we will do. We're going to help you move your bunk beds to the other side of the room. And we know not everybody can just go out and buy a brand new fridge, but you need to consider that you probably need to look for one, because this is causing not just problems with your kids. It's going to cause you problems, period. It's going to run your bill up and everything else. And so the homeowner talked to her dad, and her dad immediately went and bought her a fridge, changed it out. And she was like, that stopped it. That stopped. The kids were fine after that, able to sleep in their room. Yeah, it was immediate.
Yeah. Basically, they were trying to sleep up against a fear cage.
Yes.
Yes.
Absolutely.
They were the little girl was having nightmares.
Oh yeah.
Just nightly nightmares. And I told this woman, I was like, it's so high off of this that in some people it could cause nosebleeds.
Yes.
I was like, migraines.
Yeah.
I was like, a multitude of issues, and they are sleeping.
Yeah.
Their head is right there
Yeah.
by the back of that fridge. And I was like, we moved their bunk beds, but I was like, I would suggest them sleeping elsewhere in the house until
Yes.
until it's
The
fixed.
situation's taken care of.
Yeah,
Which
because
they
we
were
do
sleeping
know,
with mom anyway, so
we do know that high EMF that comes off of like electrical, what am I wanting to say, junction stations and
yes.
stuff like that. If you have a house near that, a lot of people will report paranormal things that are going
Mhm.
on,
Yes.
fear and stuff. So we do know too that long term that can lead to tumors. It can lead to all
Yeah.
kinds of different stuff. So
Really
yeah,
messing up.
Mhm.
it can be very dangerous. And those of us
Yeah.
that are sensitive, that's what we're picking up. We're picking up that
Mhm.
EMF that's being released off of that activity, however that's going on.
Mhm.
So
Yep.
yeah,
It's pretty wild.
it is. It is.
Yeah.
Fun stuff.
All right. We're getting down to it.
We are. We got about 5 more minutes and then we can play notebooks.
All right,
Yeah,
sounds good.
I was looking at my list of questions here.
Okay.
We've gone over so much more than what I thought we would.
I know this has been fantastic. I was thinking, oh, we're just going to do cryptids. This has been so much better,
Yeah,
than just cryptids.
Whatever
Touching
you
on
want to talk
everything.
about, I'm open for any of this stuff.
Absolutely. Well, I'm sure we
Oh,
will.
here's a
be up
question.
to
Here's a
hang
question
out
for you.
again.
You got it, Jess.
Have you ever had an experience with a cryptid?
Yes. Yes.
Would you like to tell us about it?
Yeah, one of probably the ones that really sticks out in my head. We lived in Harrison, Arkansas for a while, which is more up in the Ozarks. It's much more
Dog
mountains.
patch. Is that what dog patch was?
Yeah. We lived about 10 to 15 miles north of that.
I was there when I was younger. Well,
Yeah.
it was open, I guess. Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool place.
But we lived approximately 7 to 8 miles south of Harrison. I think it was down Highway 7, and we lived on the side of a mountain, what we call them in the Ozarks. And I used to be up pretty late at night. I worked second shift and stuff like that. And we were living in a mobile home at that time. This was 93, I think it was, end of 92, beginning of 93.
Mm-hmm.
And we had several dogs, probably too many dogs at the time. If you live out in the country, every dog in the neighborhood ends up adopting you. You end up adopting it, and people dump off their dogs. And I'm big-hearted when it comes to animals. I don't want to see anything happen to them.
Yeah.
So along with that, and setting kind of how the story was going, the mobile home that we lived in really didn't have good underpinning. And on one part of it, it had no underpinning at all. And we had a security light that set out there, one lone security light. And so one night we're sitting in the living room section of the mobile home, and you can hear something all of a sudden is just beating the snot out of this back door by our laundry area. And we're kind of looking at each other like, what the hell is that? Because being up there, it's possible that there's bears. But again, I also told you we had too many dogs. Maybe they were getting into a fight with something or being stupid the way dogs are. And so I get up, and I mean, really, it's starting to shake the trailer, a little bit. I'm like, okay. So I go into this one room and I forget it was a stick, a baseball bat, something. And I'm like, getting over to the door, and I'm like, it is really trying to come through this door. And I thought, all right, I'm not hearing any of the dogs barking though. So I was getting more and more puzzled. I thought, this is going to be a bear or something like that. So I throw open the door just as soon as it stops. So here are these dogs, these marvelous protecting dogs, who are all in this semicircle out in the yard looking at me for, some kind of hope. They're just looking at me like, are you going to do something about this? And I'm like, well, you guys suck, first of all. There's more of you than me. And anytime anybody walks by, you're barking at them like, you're just going to tear their legs off. But this thing, whatever it is, you're not going to do anything. So there's steps right there, those crappy concrete steps that every mobile home has. Yep. So I'm standing there. There's no underpinning. And I kind of squat down just a little bit because they're also looking under there. Besides looking at me, they're kind of looking at me. They're looking under the trailer. They're looking at me. They're looking under the trailer. And I thought, well, first of all, I'm not looking under there. I'm not hanging my head under there because I've seen that movie and it doesn't. So, well, I'm
Mom
sitting
didn't
there.
raise no fool, huh?
Yeah, right. I like me. I don't want me to stop being me. So I'm sitting there, and of course the dogs are quiet, everybody's quiet, and I can hear that baby sound. Remember, I told you I had
Oh, yeah.
experienced it. So
Mhm.
I'm hearing very faintly a baby crying, and I thought, I don't know what that is. And so I jumped like every kid who jumps out of their bed to try and get to, the light or whatever, because they don't want the monster underneath the bed to grab me.
Yep.
That was me just then, jumping out to where the dogs are. Again, I reinforced to the dogs that they sucked and they didn't do anything good, and that me feeding them was a waste of my time and, my money. So we're looking underneath the trailer, and remember I said we had that security light, so that casts a little bit of light so that you can see a shadow. And sure enough, there is something big under there. I
Holy
can't
cow.
tell what it is. I don't know. I've never heard of Dog Man at the time, but maybe
Yeah.
it was something like that. I actually think it was more of a Sasquatch thing, but there's not enough room for a big 12-foot whatever to get underneath my trailer. So I don't really know what it was, but I know it was some kind of something. It wasn't a bear. I know what a bear sounds like. I know what kind
Yeah.
of. So finally, I told the dogs, I'm like, well, you suck. Go away. You're not doing any good. So they go on. And then I walk up to the steps and I'm like, look, just stop beating on the house. I don't have a problem with you. I don't want you to have a problem with me. I'm going to go back inside. You go away. I'll leave you alone. You leave me alone. And I went back inside, and that was the end of it. So, but I was in the woods a lot. So I kind of wonder if I didn't gain this thing's attention and it came up to the house.
Serious. Could be.
But also, I had two small kids. One was a newborn daughter. So maybe it was attracted by that. I don't know. But
Maybe.
Yeah.
Interesting. That's
I
wild.
I don't know how you got the gumption to leave the steps, because I would have been going back inside.
Yeah, for
I've
sure.
been
Well-
like, you dogs are on your own.
Well, I don't know why. I guess I was more worried about the dogs, and I was in my 20s, so I thought I was, 10 foot tall and bulletproof. And,
And
I'm going to
wrestle,
go out
yeah.
there and wrestle whatever this thing is, like an idiot. Yeah.
You know what's interesting is how it was making the baby cry sound.
Yes.
I mean,
Yes.
do you think it was trying to entice you to go under there or stick your head
don't-
under there?
I don't know. Or, a lot of times when we look in paranormal situations, cryptid situations, especially Bigfoot, they won't make that sound unless they know that there is a female around. So when they know that there's a female around, they'll make that sound, and we don't know whether it's to entice the female to come out
Mhm.
because there's a baby, the natural, I've got to go find this baby, I've got to take care of
Right.
this baby. Or is it trying to, I'm not going to harm you. I'm as dangerous as a baby.
As a baby.
We don't know. We don't know what kind of
Interesting.
communication it is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or it wants you to come
Mm.
look because it thinks that it'll entice you in if you think that there's an infant not being
Yes.
taken care of
Yeah.
nearby.
It may have, that may have been the end of me if I had, done that, because apparently the dogs weren't going to save me. So,
They're going to leave you
Yeah.
to your own.
I'm still a little miffed about the whole dog thing. That was
I can see why.
93,
Worthless
I don't blame
dogs.
you,
Yeah.
for sure.
Worthless damn dogs.
I don't blame you either, but I would not have left those steps except for to go
me
right back in the
either.
house again.
You're
Right.
braver than I am.
And I would have been locking all the doors and shutting the
Mhm.
windows. So
Well, I did lock all the doors. That same area, I will add this, I used to have to walk to work because we had problems with our car. We weren't as well set. We were a young couple who was struggling at the time.
Yeah.
And I walked to work, and I worked second shift. So I'm walking in as it's getting dark and walking home in the middle of the night.
Oh,
And I had
wow.
times where I was walking that road, which takes me right by a cemetery,
Nice.
in the middle of the night. So there's times where I felt like there was something either walking with me, walking past me, or watching me. And there was one situation where I was not far from the house, and I was walking towards where our driveway was. and I thought I was seeing a horse walking down the road toward me, which was not, it wouldn't have been that big of a weird thing because
Right.
we had cattle, we had horses and everything out there, sheep, rabbits, I almost wouldn't have freaked out if an elephant walked past me. There's so many things going on, so I'm seeing this horse and I'm thinking, I don't want to spook this horse, because I'm almost home, first of all, and I don't want to get trampled by a horse just, 20 feet from my home, so I'm thinking I'm just going to look down, keep walking, and kind of, hey, what's going on, and I do that, and I get this feeling that this isn't a horse. I'm not eyeing the horse. I don't want to, as it was coming up to me. So I'm kind of just looking at the road and walking along. And so I got that feeling that this was not what it was. And as I passed whatever it was, I turned to look and there was nothing there. It was gone. So I was like, I'm going to walk a little quicker home.
Oh my gosh.
Absolutely. We have seen that all too.
Yeah.
Pam and I especially have had our own brand of weird follow us around. Yeah. I'm sure we're going to get to know you very well.
Yeah.
Well, I
hear
hope
all our
You will
stories.
we will all get to hear all of our stories. So.
Good. That's what I want.
Yay.
Anywho, are we ready for some notebook game?
Yeah, let's do the notebook games.
We are ready for that for sure.
All right, let me snag up my notebooks here.
So if this is the first time for anybody to watch us, Jess, her nickname is actually Notebooks for very good reason. She she keeps
My manic
tedious,
notebook look.
almost, I say tedious, but not really because they're great. This is just the tip of the iceberg of the notes books that she keeps. And she tabs them all.
They're all tabbed.
Yep.
And what's inside of them. Right? So I have many. I try to grab 5 different ones.
Okay.
So how we play this is, and of course we're not doing this live right now, so we can't have people from the chat rooms doing this. So
Right.
I'm going to let Pam and Robert choose. So what you do, Robert, is you pick a number of a notebook, 1 through 5, and pick a page anywhere from 65 down, because that's as high as my notebooks go.
Okay.
So as the guest, we shall let you choose first and let the cards fall where they may.
Notebook number 3.
Okay. 1, 2, 3.
Page 13.
Page 13. All right. And we're going. All right. This page is on the redbird petroglyphs inside of Pike County, Kentucky.
Oh, cool.
Nice.
Very cool.
Right? So it's on US Route 421, nicknamed the Warrior Steel. Let's see here. It's about Yahala, the Kentucky or the Cherokee word, which is a story about a mixed blood trader who lived in the Great Stone House and was taken away by the Nunahai, the little people, to the spirit world. And Nunahai made the mistake of eating the food, Nunhi made the mistake of eating the food of the Nunahai, which meant he could never return to his people except as a spirit. So you want to talk about Fae?
Yep. You never eat
We're talking about Fae.
What is really kind of synchronicity about that whole thing is earlier today I was rereading about the Piazza bird and the drawing on the rocks and everything. So that's kind of funny that you talked about the glyphs.
Very cool.
Yep.
Interesting.
So
this is always such a fun game.
Yeah.
You never know what.
You never know what you're gonna find. All right, Miss Pam, what do you want?
Book. Let's see. Notebook 4, page 44. 444 is my number.
Pam knows what she's doing. I know what Pam's doing. That's her number. That's her 444.
It pops up in the weirdest spots.
Mine is 1013.
Really?
Yeah.
That is an interesting one. Cool.
It's my birthday, October the
Oh,
13th.
cool.
And then the funny thing is, like X-Files,
Mhm.
the production company that did X-Files was called 1013 Productions.
How cool. That's awesome.
Okay, so this is part of my simulation theory research, and this particular
Cool.
page is based on the quarks they found in the supercode. So,
Interesting.
theoretical physicist James Gate claims he has identified what appears to be an actual computer code embedded in the equations of string theory that describe the fundamental particles of our universe. He says he found error or correcting codes there that make web browsers work. So why were
that's
they in
really
the why were they in the equation? I was studying about quarks, electrons, and supersymmetry. And then I made some little side notes to myself. Our universe has too many rules. Simulation glitches make more sense than ghosts. I was just making little side notes to myself. So that's what this page is on.
What's really
Interesting.
interesting about quarks is they move backwards through time.
Yes.
Yep.
Yes. All right.
That's crazy. That was a good one. Okay, Jess, you pick one. You
Me?
never get to pick
Okay.
one. You pick one.
Let's see here. I'll do the second one. 35.
Cool.
Oh, this is a full one too. Okay, let's see. Make it down for the first 25. To count out the last 10. Okay. Oh, hold on. I got to go to the next page. That's the end of that. Okay. Well, it was like the last sentence from the page beforehand, and then I skipped to go to the next thing. So
it's the blank page.
this is the information on the research that we did on the Christmas monsters for the What If Tomorrow on the Fringe guys, right? And this one has the hands trap on it, the Christmas scarecrow from France, Germany, and Austria.
Mm-hmm.
So his origins were a real man. He was cruel and debauched. He was a rich man who practiced black magic and worshipped Satan. He was brought before the Pope and excommunicated. Local townspeople seized all his money and lands and banished him to the mountains. He went insane and became obsessed with cannibalism. He stuffed his clothes with straw one night and stalked and killed a 10-year-old boy with a sharp stick.
Yikes.
Was struck down by the gods before he could taste him. He was his spirit is now used as a warning to bad children. So that's his legend story. He's basically another version of, all the baddie Christmases that Christmas people that follow Santa and beat children who are in bags
and yeah.
Krampus and Mary Lyd and the Stragili and
That's
what that
is. Yeah, you never know what's going to pop up in her notebooks. It's the best game ever.
That's the kind of researcher I like.
Absolutely.
All
so we are coming to the end here. So Robert, tell everybody where they can find you if they're interested in talking to you or finding out more about you.
Yeah, absolutely. Go on Facebook, go to Monstrous Arkansas and the groups. Just see if we'll let you in. Chances are I will. All you got to do is make sure you answer the questions. Be happy to let you in, and you can join our goofy group of weirdos who like to get together and share pictures and talk about lore and everything we can possibly think of. And don't wear your heart on your sleeve, because we will beat each other up once in a while. So it's part of having the fun with it. You're going to hear all kinds of different points of view. Mm-hmm. Be involved. That's the big thing. If you're gonna come in and you're gonna join in, I'm kind of like, why join a group that you're not actually going to do anything with, and you're just going to sit in the background and watch everybody else?
Yep.
Get in there, speak your mind, have some fun. I try and put 2 or 3 things in every couple of days, just to get people thinking and talking. And, we all want to have fun. We want to make a community that talks about Bigfoot, talks about aliens, talks about UFOs, talks about the paranormal. We've got me. I'm writing books. I'm hopefully going to be doing some podcasting. We've got you guys do investigating. You do podcasting. We've got Amber, who does TikToks. We've got, the ladies from Stone Maiden. We've got Spirit Knows. We've got everybody. I'm trying to get everybody I can in there. It's like a black hole for people who are in, we want to drag you all into it.
I can attest. It's a fun group too.
We try to have fun,
Yeah, it is fun.
There's going to be a couple of loony birds in there because I'm one of them. And, we're going to have some weird stuff where I'm going to come up with some weird oddball questions that you think you're going to know the answer to. And you're going to be like, no, Robert has no idea what he's talking about. And that's fine, because sometimes I will ask loaded questions just so you'll get in there and you'll correct me because I want
argue.
You
Yeah.
Yeah. So come join us. Come have fun. If you're looking for the books, go to Amazon.com. Look for, again, Monstrous Arkansas. You can get the paperback. You can get the hardcover. It's not a true book unless it's a hardcover. So remember
True that.
Yeah. We've always got stuff going on. We're trying to get the YouTube channel up and going. We're going to try and film our investigations and stuff like that. We're trying to get the podcast going. We're trying to get all kinds of things going. But in a lot of ways, I'm one guy doing a whole lot of things, and I want to get everybody else involved. I want to get a team in there that wants to play, that wants to do these things, that wants to get together at least once a month. So, yeah, if you're interested, please check us out. The worst that could happen is you find out we're really weird and you don't want anything to do with us. And then you can leave, because we won't keep you there forever. But at least give us a shot.
Awesome. Cool. Are we ready to close out then?
We are ready to close out, I do believe.
Cool. All right. Well, thank you to everyone who is watching or is going to watch or is listening on your podcast listener there. Thank you to Robert for hanging out with us too.
Thank you.
We will have you back again. Yeah. Remember to like, subscribe, and hit that bell, and find us on social media. You can find a listing of our show notes, our resources and references on our website, www.bordertownparanormal.com. Look for the button at the top. That's where you'll find it at. Catch the show live every other Wednesday night at 7 p.m. Central. Join us in 2 weeks for an all-new episode. So keep it strange, and remember, it's all connected. Good night.
Good night, everybody.
Good night.